Hey, it's Paul here. I just want to take a second to encourage you. Something that I've learned over the last year is that everyone has a story to tell, no matter who you are. I even believe that everyone has at least one book in them. If you're somebody who's always thought that they would want to write a book, or maybe all your friends are like, you got to write a book, or most importantly, maybe God has called you to write a book, and it just hasn't happened yet, that's all right. I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you'll be encouraged to start yourself on that path. I recently published my first book, and this book was 11 years in the making. Of course, I felt that it was something that I was supposed to be writing and I was called to do, but every time I sat down, over the past decade, I couldn't. I couldn't. I would try to write, and I'd only get a few hundred words out, and I felt really discouraged. I thought, is this really what the Lord's asking me to do? Is it something I'm even capable of doing? I really questioned myself. So what changed for me? Like, how did I go from not thinking I could do it to actually publishing a book? Why was it something I could do? All of a sudden, in 2 months, I wrote a book that I've been trying to write for 11 years. There's truth that there's timing, God's timing, and also there's truth that there's revelation that comes from your experiences. So over that 11 years, the life and the practices of the concepts of the book, I was trying to live out. Of course, I couldn't have wrote that book 11 years ago, but still, in a moment, what the Lord had asked me to do, I was able to do in 2 months. And obviously, He has a lot to do with that. He knows what His plan is. And when we yield ourselves to His plan and to His will, and we come in line with what He's doing, then He does His work. But these 3 tips are really game changers when it came to the process of me getting the book written finally. And I want to share those 3 tips with you right now. Write an outline. Obviously, this is kind of common sense, and you probably already have an outline. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I want to encourage you to write an outline of what the book's about. So I wrote an outline a long time ago, and I knew what the book was going to be about. I knew what the chapters were going to be about. I just couldn't come up with the content. A lot of the stuff, like if you look at the outline now compared to the actual table of contents in the book, there's some similarities, but there's a lot of differences. Like even the tagline has changed. It's just, again, don't marry yourself to this outline. It's just a way to keep you on the path. Like if you're not sure what to talk about, go to chapter 1. And what would you say in chapter 1? Just remember that it's an outline. So if you self-publish, you can change it really anytime, even after you've printed copies. And if you wind up traditionally publishing, they're probably going to change a lot of it anyway. So don't get bogged down in the details. If you have an idea of the topic, to break it into chapters, just make up titles as they're themed around that chapter. You don't have to know all the words. Just make up a title for the chapter based on a theme, or maybe a story you're going to tell. How many chapters will you need to tell your story? Maybe you only need 5 chapters. Maybe you need 20 chapters. When I was writing my outline, I knew that I was going to have 12 chapters. That was just kind of in me, and it felt good. It felt right. So I planned at around 12 chapters. There probably could have been more, but I felt good about that. It just felt right. I just remember that this is just a launching point for you to have a guide to help you stay on track. As you write, you will develop new ideas and possibly change your outline. You probably will. You'll change the outline. You might change the title, chapter titles, numbers of chapters. It's okay. It's okay to change. It's an outline, a working, fluid outline. It's just there to help you start. If all you do is get your outline written, that's progress. Do not edit as you go. This was hard for me to learn. And actually, a buddy of mine told me this. And once I decided to stop editing as I went, it changed everything. It's going to be very difficult. It was, but trust me, do not edit as you write. Just throw up on paper. Just type and know that once you've said all you need to say, you'll get someone else, and I recommend a professional, we can talk about that later, to edit your manuscript. This is so important. When I first started writing Heart of a Husband, I spent so much time trying to make sure I was saying it just right and punctuating just right that I wasn't getting anything written. You are the author. You have the story to tell. It's someone else's job to edit it and proofread it for you. This may be the most valuable tip I can give you. Putting this into practice changed the way that I wrote. Now, I'm not saying you can't edit your own book and you can't proofread it, but what I'm suggesting is do them at separate times. Just write the book. Tell your story as though you're talking. You might even speak it into a recorder and then have it translated into into print. Just to there's apps for that, and I'll put a link in my description, some sites that you can go to that'll do that for you. I think there's like a charge per word, or I'm not sure. I've not used it, but I know that they exist, so I'll look that up for you. But anyway, again, do yourself a favor and just put words on paper. Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about periods. Just throw it up on paper, and then you can edit later once the manuscript's done. This will keep you from getting sidetracked. It'll keep you on task. Tip number 3, don't read it as you write it. This is almost as important as not editing when you write it. It will help actually with the not editing, because if you're not reading, you can't edit. So I didn't think about this, but a buddy of mine told me, listen, don't read it as you write. Just write and then move on. Write and move on. Write and move on. And so that's what I did. It's going to be hard because you're going to want to look at what you wrote. But what I did was I had my wife and 2 good buddies of mine read it as I finished a chapter. Like, they would read it, they would make notes. And then once I was done with the manuscript, I took all the notes and went back and did the rewrite. And so you can either print it out and have your trusted readers write on the paper, or you can use a shared document folder. I did both of these because my wife is a librarian, and so she prefers the physical copy. And my buddies, I used Google Docs. And in Google Docs, they can actually add notes without actually editing the content. So they were able to highlight areas that they wanted to make a comment on, and then either ask me to elaborate, or it's also encouraging because they'll tell you things that you said that they really enjoyed reading. So just encourage you, don't read it until it's done. This will keep you from worrying about editing and, oh, that doesn't sound right. Worry about that in the rewrite. So once I had an outline, and I decided to stop editing and reading as I was writing, I had the manuscript done in about 2 months. I was kind of shocked. I couldn't believe it. I had a little over 30,000 words written in 2 months, and what had taken me 11 years to get to that point. I did the rewrite in about a month, and then I had the book to an editor 3 months after I started writing the book, just right after I put these tips into practice. If you're interested in hearing about the next 3 steps that I took after the manuscript was done, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Also, I'd love to hear what book is on your heart. Like, what book is God calling you to write? Put it in the descriptions down below. I'd love to hear about it. Or if you've already published a book, maybe you have some tips, maybe you have some insight. I'd love to hear it. I'd love for you to share it. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I pray that you're encouraged to do all God has called you to do, and to say all that you hear Him saying. God bless.